Hello everyone, and welcome to another video here on Real Over Religion. It is I, Johnny Lee, and we are back with another one. Thank you always for your support, your likes, your shares, and your subscriptions to the channel. I have a lot going on in my brain as I'm thinking about this subject, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the title. I like to do this organically off the top of the head. I have so many different thoughts and ideas. I woke up a couple of days ago with the thought on my mind when I think about the illusion of love, the lies that we have been sold through religion, and the perpetuation of this lie of unconditional love, romantic love, this illusion of happiness that we are being sold so that we can continue to bring children into this slave system we call life. And I wanted to dig into that today. I think I may even title this video that the fantasy is more appealing, it's more exciting than reality, but I will condense it. We'll see where we go with this. But the fantasy is more appealing than reality, which is the reason why the mainstream will never tell the main population the truth. The truth of the matter is that life is meaningless at its core. But the people that are the most powerful will use any tool or mechanism to keep you, the population, we, the population, playing their game. And that is that you need to keep bringing more kids into the world, putting them into their institutions, molding their brains, and preparing them to be drones and robots working for the system that we pay into for them to continue to keep living the comfortable lives that they live. If all of humanity woke up and understood that life is meaningless and that there really is no God that we know of, he has not revealed himself or proven himself, even though many of you or some of you have come in my comment section telling me that God is real, but you still have not provided any evidence. As I always say on this channel, if they have to speak for God, you've already lost the debate. He should be able to speak for himself, and do not give me the scripture that says the invisible things of him shall be known of him by the things that are made. I can literally say that for anyone. Put any God in that category and I can give anyone credit for creating the earth. So that's not evidence, ladies and gentlemen. That is a claim from a collection of books written by human beings who came from one of the most illiterate parts of the world. Is this where you want to gather your evidence from? You've never met these individuals. You don't know if they were on psychedelics. They had schizophrenia. You don't know any of these apostles and so-called prophets and that made these claims. Humanity started out religious because they could not understand the world in which they live in. We still don't fully even understand why we are here. Science does not answer the philosophical question of why. They only answer the question of how. We know how our universe got here, but what happened before that, we probably will never know. So let's not get into that debate. No, there is no evidence for the God that you believe in. Yahweh has been disproven historically. We know where his origins come from. Let's just zero in and focus on him. We know where Yahweh comes from, the Father of your Lord Jesus Christ. We know where he comes from. So he has already been disproven, discredited, and we disregard him on this channel. So let's go back a little bit, because the Bible says, according to the story of Adam and Eve, God told them to be fruitful and multiply. This is a lie that is continuing to be perpetuated in Christian churches. Again, we talk about pushing outdated ideas in modern times. And the reason why our government would not outlaw this kind of thinking, outside of the fact that we live in a country of freedom of speech. But they're not going to push against this narrative because they need you to reproduce. Because these are bodies that they can place into places so that they can pay into this fraud system that we live in, where they take your tax money and they do whatever they want to do with it. Now, I'm not advocating that you don't pay taxes. We don't do that on this channel. But what I am telling you is that all systems are corrupt. And as long as you keep bringing children into this corrupt system, you're just playing their game. And religion perpetuates this. Be fruitful and multiply in a world where, according to scientists, we are nearing overpopulation. Now, you can argue that, yes, there's a lot of land that needs to be utilized and this, that, and the third. But we can't put people everywhere because you still need farmland. You still need to grow food. I read somewhere that based on the way that we've done our soil here, we only have a limited amount of harvest left. I forget what the number is. So eventually starvation is going to come down the line. And those of you that want to continue to bring kids into the world because you want your little mini-me here, they're going to have to deal with that. But many of you have the attitude that King Hezekiah had in the Bible. For those of you Bible students out there, there was a part where King Hezekiah, after he was diagnosed that he was going to die, I believe he had a boil or something, some type of illness, that he was going to die. He prayed to God. God sent the prophet Isaiah to him and told him that because of his prayer, God was going to give him another 15 years. And then because he was so happy about the fact that he was healed, ambassadors from Babylon came to visit him. And he began to show them all of the wealth of his kingdom. And this was to Yahweh's displeasure. And so Yahweh sent the prophet Isaiah back to him and said, everything that you showed the Babylonians, they're going to come and take it into captivity, and your sons and your grandchildren, etc. But because of your prayer, it would not happen in your days. And you know what Hezekiah said? Well, blessed be the word of the Lord, as long as it doesn't happen in my day. As long as it doesn't happen to me, I'm fine. And that's the mentality of those of you that continue to bring your kids into the world because you're not living the future realities that are coming down the pipeline. Subconsciously, that's what you're thinking. As long as it doesn't happen to me, you're not thinking about it because you'll be dead. But it's your children and your children's children who are going to have to live through this because you want to leave a legacy behind. It may benefit you today, but it's not going to benefit them tomorrow. And who's to say that they're even going to live out their days? Because we talk about this. There are no guarantees in life. Many parents lose their kids before they bury their children. There's not a pipeline that says that your children are going to bury you. Life is unpredictable in this way. We talk about this. The reality of sickness, tragedy, and natural causes will take us out of this world, guaranteed. So we fall in love with the illusion of love and romance. We're still not knowledgeable enough to understand that our biological makeup, the evolutionary biological nature of the human, is to reproduce. This is what men do, is we spread seed because we are programmed to survive. That's what evolution gave us. And that's why, ladies, your man, he's not going to be faithful to you. And even if he's faithful to you physically, he's looking at another woman because he can't overcome that need to reproduce. Because monogamy is not natural to the human being, the man or the woman, and we can look at the numbers in this. There was a study that that women came out and admitted that that they have cheated on their partners and they don't know about it. Because monogamy is not a natural thing, but religion made it this thing where a woman needs to be a virgin. Because if we go back in time, back to the hunter-gatherer days, before religion put its foothold on society, men and women were polyamorous. They were sleeping around. They were doing their thing. doing what biology has programmed them to do. But the problem is that men don't get pregnant, women do. So children are being born and nobody knows who the children belongs to, which I believe is where the phrase eventually came from, that, it takes a village to raise a child. That's because that's what that actually happened. People got together in villages. It didn't matter, who the kids were. Everybody was just taking care of everybody. But then when society became these city-states of places and, classes of people came into play, the men had to put a stop to what the women were doing. I don't want to raise kids that are not mine. I don't want to, I have possessions and I want to pass them down to my lineage, not the maybe babies. So this concept of virginity and controlling the woman's body came into play, and that interwoven itself through religion. So this big thing about a woman being a virgin was important in those days because that was the way that you determined paternity. According to the Old Testament, when a man married a woman, a virgin girl, her parents had to have what they call the signs of her virginity, which was traditionally a white sheet that they would place on the bed. When the couple got married, had intercourse, the woman would bleed. He's breaking the hymen. She bleeds. This is the signs of her virginity. The parents would take that and keep that as evidence of her virginity, so that the man knew he was getting a untouched woman. And if you didn't have that evidence, then they stoned you to death because they considered you playing the whore, according to the Bible. But it was okay for the men to do this. They could sleep around because men created the system, right? But a woman could not do this because this was against God's will. So you see, humans were not monogamous by nature, but they forced monogamy on society because, again, this was about, keeping the possessions and the property and all of that stuff in the families. So they needed to control this. But in our society today, women are more free than they've ever been in history. Women are able to take care of themselves, provide for themselves, careers. So they don't need to put up with the possessive, controlling nature of the patriarchal system of the man anymore. And so, as a result, you're seeing that in the divorce ratings, the divorce statistics. 70 to 75% of these divorces are initiated by women, according to the stats. And the reason being is that a woman doesn't have to deal with a man anymore. And it's even financially beneficial if that man makes more money than her. So why would she tolerate someone like this? See, the illusion of love, ladies and gentlemen, is that we don't, that falling in love thing is not a real thing. The reason that men and women worked together in the past is because it was based on survival. But now that we've mastered this survival thing, we don't really need each other the same way anymore. So you trying to rely on monogamy is an illusion. You trying to have a family with someone under the guise that you're going to be in love till death do you part is not a reality. Now, that does not mean that it doesn't happen. There's always going to be an exception to the rule. There's always going to be somebody out there, that two couples that genuinely love each other, have a successful family, and they go on and ride off into the sunset. That's called the luck of the draw. That's how odds work. That's called probability. It's a probability that these things will play out that way, and sometimes they do, but it's not the rule. And my argument is, why would you even play that game? Because you're taking a risk. And the chances of having a successful family is very low because of the fact that we live in a society today where everyone is super duper free, which I think the human being should be free. You cannot lock a human being down by religious rules. And it doesn't matter what religion you come from, whether you're Catholic, Jewish, Muslim. Like I said, I go into these chat rooms because I like to study human behavior. And in chat rooms, people are themselves because they're anonymous. And what I find is that there's women in there from all different religions. There's men in there from all different religions. Some are claiming to be pastors and some are pastor wives. You have some of the most insane things going on in these places, but it tells me the reality of what is. Behind closed doors tells a different story. Most of these rooms are filled with dissatisfied wives that have husbands who work too much and they want to have fun. And again, the illusion of happiness. It's men who are looking for variety. That monogamy thing is not a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. That's the reason why I refused since 2017 to attach myself to anyone. Because it's not a natural thing. But I will put this out there. I know I've said this, and it's true that we are polyamorous by nature, but I do not recommend that lifestyle. I believe that that is also an extreme way to live. You put yourself at risk of unwanted pregnancies and STDs out here. People are doing some of the most weirdest and craziest things out here. You know, me personally, even though, yes, as a man, I like variety, but I don't go out here trying to mess with everything that moves, because that's a dangerous game to play, especially in today's society. So you have to be careful with who you deal with, because we're talking about a human animal. I'm not confused about the illusion of love. Relationships, ladies and gentlemen, it's strictly business, and that's how you should keep it. Value for value exchange. Friendship, relationship, you should have an understanding with the person that you're with. And if you want a monogamous relationship, then you need to have that understanding with the person that you're dealing with. There's nothing wrong with that. Monogamy is a choice. I'm a proponent of that, exclusivity, because you don't want to play the game of just randomly screwing around with strangers. I would not recommend that. But it's your life. You do what you want to do with it. But I would not recommend that as a rational thinking human being because of the risk involved. But I also do not advocate marriage either, because that's also a risk, and it's also an unnatural position to put yourself in, because people change, people evolve. They may love you today and not love you tomorrow because they've been deceived by the dopamine and serotonin release that comes out and make at the time that you meet someone new. Those feelings cannot be trusted or relied upon. But the illusion, the fantasy, is more exciting than reality. The reality of what I'm giving you, ladies and gentlemen, is based on the numbers that we see today. Monogamy is not a successful way to be. Now, arranged marriages are more successful because those women don't have the autonomy or the freedom to get away from the culture or the men that they are with. That's the only reason why it's successful on paper. You have to violate human autonomy in order for these things to work. The marriage rate is probably super successful in Saudi Arabia because the women don't have very many rights over there. It is controlled by the religious patriarchal system of Islamic men. Their religion is interwoven in their government. I mean, they even have gone so far as stoning a woman for being sexually violated because she lost her virginity, even though that wasn't her choice. It can get extreme and it can get crazy. If you have the freedom and the autonomy, my recommendation, ladies and gentlemen, is that you get away from the illusion of love and romance. Yes, I know maybe you're lonely. Maybe you just want, because of the natural nature of human beings, we are social creatures. You want to belong to someone. You want to have someone to hang out with. I get it. But let me tell you something. That only works for so long. And you have to deal with the risk of the reality of that people change. I would never, ever, ever recommend that you sacrifice yourself for any human being, except if you have children. If you have children, that's who you sacrifice for because you brought them into the world. But another human being beyond that, I would not recommend that. Because number one, most people are not going to do that for you anyways. The self-sacrificing thing has been placed upon us as this moral thing because this is what Jesus did for us. But That's also a manipulation tactic from God himself, because you come into the world owing God something. Isn't that what an abusive man would do to a woman? If she's in a bad situation and, he's helped her out financially for whatever reason, then you put her in a position that, well, you owe me. They use guilt tactics to keep you attached. That's the reason why you people are sucked into this God thing, because he died for you. He loved you first, so we love him back. But I didn't ask him to die for me anyways. In fact, you could have just forgiven my sins. Why did you have to go through the steps of killing yourself, coming down on a suicide mission to die for me, and I didn't even ask you to do this? In fact, God, I didn't even ask you to create me. You did this. And you created the boundaries and the parameters that you placed me in, and now I come into the world owing you something. And this is love? But we've been taught to believe that self-sacrifice is the moral highest good because Jesus did it for us. But it's a manipulation tactic to control. You owe God something. You owe him your life because he gave his for you. This is irrationality and madness. And we should do ourselves a favor to rid ourselves from this thinking. So what am I saying in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen? Number one, I always tell you on this channel, you do what you want to do with your life. These are just my recommendations as someone who follows the Epicurean philosophy of mitigating suffering. I would rather you not play the game. Those of you that are single entities, you want something out of life. I would not wrap my life around building it around another human being. There's nothing wrong with having friends or relationships, but you need to understand the reality of what is. There is no unconditional love, and romance is an illusion. That's why they market it to you, because they need you to bring those kids into the world so that they can continue to participate in the slave system. I will not do that to my future generations. Whether I'm cremated or put in the ground or burned alive in a car crash, whatever comes first, that will be the end of me. That will be the end of my existence, my consciousness, and that is it. And I'm okay with that, because I refuse to live with the guilt of gambling with my future generations, bringing them here to deal with this psychotic world that we live in. Because make no mistake, human beings are savage animals. Just look at your news, look at the world news, look what's going on in your backyard. Human beings are savage animals. Don't you ever forget that. In the name of survival, your life means nothing. And as things get difficult and harder, as you keep playing the game of population and you keep bringing more and more people into the world, people don't even have the logic to understand. They complain on TikTok and all these different apps about how expensive things are. Meanwhile, you got 3 and 4 children that you brought into the world. People act like bringing children into the world is something that just happens to them. Childbirth is a decision that you've made. And you decided to do that based on whatever ideology you believe in. You probably thought that God was going to provide for you, and you found out that that's not happening. So you go and you listen to the preacher who tells you you need to pay more tithes, which he's taking your money and spending your money on buying material things, telling you that blessings work. And you don't even have the wisdom or the knowledge or understanding to see that you're being robbed. You're being duped and deceived. And they're using the Bible to do it. No, the more kids you bring into the world, of course prices are going to go up. Yes, food is going to be more expensive because you're creating more mouths to feed. So when the demand slows down, the prices go down. So if you want to bring the prices down of the cost of living, of houses and food, and cars and all that stuff, stop bringing more people into the world. That's how you fix that problem. You slow the population down, the demand will slow down. Simple common sense that we as human beings continue to neglect. But again, it's your life. You do what you want to do with it. These are just my recommendations, my humble opinion. As for me, these will never be my experiences. I'm one entity. I'm one person. I only worry about myself every day, and I'm doing okay. But for many of you that are suffering because you've been sold this ideology, this illusion, a fantasy that everything's going to be okay if you just fall in love, and you look at all of these people on social media and these so-called successful relationships, and then a year later they're in turmoil because of stuff going on behind the scenes. You fell for the illusion. We all have. I'm not above that. I've been duped and deceived. I grew up in religion. I tried the marriage thing. It doesn't work. Now, I wasn't a perfect husband. In fact, I wasn't even ready to be a husband at 19 years old. But the reason that I got married is because of this pressure in the scriptures that says it's better to marry than to burn. I'm at the height of my testosterone, the height of my sexual drive. I don't want to fornicate, so the next thing to do is to get married. What just a horrible bad advice coming from, but that's what happens when you follow outdated ideas in the 20th and 21st century. These are outdated ideas. Protect yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. That's the best advice I can give you. Worry about yourself. Take care of yourself and understand that nobody is never going to care about you better than you do yourself. It's okay to be alone and you're not lonely. I enjoy my company because I have things that I can do. I have hobbies and interests. I love to read, love music. Find something that you love to do. Don't wrap your life up in human beings, because people are like the sea. They change all the time. And that's how you get disappointed, because you had an expectation on what you thought a person was. Don't you know that when you go out on dates and you meet people for the first time, you're meeting their representative, you're not meeting who they are? But if you spend a little more time with them long enough, you'll find out that they're crazy just as much as they're going to find out that you're crazy too. Relationships can work as long as you're willing to deal with the crazy of each other, as long as your crazy is not, unbearable crazy, because we all are damaged. We all come from whatever backgrounds we come from, and we're all damaged. And some people's crazy is just too much. It's just better for you to deal with your own crazy. Again, we're talking about mitigating suffering, reducing suffering in his life, because we're going to suffer. But if I'm going to suffer, I'd rather do it by myself than have to deal with somebody else's drama and make my life even more unbearable. I'm trying to enjoy this meaningless existence as much as I can. And that should be the goal, because there's nothing else after this as far as we know. There is no evidence of anything after this. I don't care what the near-death experience people say, because there's a study about that, and maybe I'll touch on that on another video, but there's already been a study about near-death experiences. The people who have, there was a group of people that were studied who died from cardiac arrest, and only 9% of them came back with an experience. The other 91% said they didn't see anything. And that's all it takes, is for one person to say that nothing happened after they went into cardiac arrest and died, to discredit NDDs altogether. That means that all of this stuff is happening up here, because you can have cardiac arrest, but your brain can still be active. The brain releases something called DMT, which would increase and heighten these type of experiences. And they also talk about that these experiences can be duplicated in a lab. You can actually smoke DMT or use it. It's a psychedelic, or they have it in psychedelic form, whatever. And you can create the same experiences. So that's not evidence, ladies and gentlemen, that there is an afterlife. That's just the short story of it. But As far as we know, there's nothing after this. So live for today. Mitigate your suffering. Avoid falling into the trap and the illusion. Do your kids a favor and don't bring them into the slave system. That's just my recommendation. But anyways, thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that this video was something of value for you. Hopefully you got something out of it that you can use. And remember, as I always say, that life is suffering, but death is mercy. And if they have to speak for God, they've already lost the debate. Thank you for watching. Until next time.